Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are putting on our detective hats to solve a biological mystery that is, honestly, so common, yet completely misunderstood. We're diving into some newly published research from a leading team of psychologists to figure out exactly why our bodies react so wildly differently to the exact same medical treatments. If you've ever felt like your body just doesn't play by the standard medical rules, you are definitely going to want to pay close attention to the evidence we're about to lay out. Take a second and really think about this. Think about your own medicine cabinet, or maybe a friend or family member. Why does the exact same pill, literally the exact same chemical compound, at the exact same dose, completely cure one person, but then cause totally debilitating side effects in somebody else? You've probably noticed this with something as simple as an everyday painkiller, or maybe something as complex as a prescribed antidepressant. For decades, the medical community has really struggled to understand this variation.
For the longest time, right, if you complained to your doctor about weird side effects that didn't quite match the textbook, or you felt a drug kicking in way too strong, you might have just been brushed off. People were told they were just anxious, or that it was, quote-unquote, all in their head. Well, the research we're unpacking today absolutely flips that script. It proves that these wildly different reactions, they're not imagined. It is not hypochondria. It's actually deeply rooted in your fundamental biology.
Enter our prime suspect, sensory processing sensitivity, or SPS for short. So what is that? Researchers define it as a biological trait characterized by a heightened sensitivity to environmental stimuli. Basically, if you have high SPS, your nervous system is just wired to process the world a lot more deeply. You notice the tiny things. You might react stronger to bright lights or really loud noises or even strong smells. And, as the researchers hypothesized, you're probably going to react way more strongly to what you put inside your body too. Now, here's the kicker. This is incredibly common. We are not talking about some super rare genetic anomaly here. According to the data, a massive 20 to 33% of the entire population is classified as highly sensitive. Just think about that for a second. That is up to 1 in 3 people you know. Up to a third of us walk into a doctor's office with a nervous system that is fundamentally highly responsive. That makes figuring out this medication mystery absolutely crucial for public health.
All right, let's dive into Section 1. Gathering the evidence. Investigating the SPS link.
To actually prove this link between SPS and medication sensitivity, a brilliant team of pioneers in sensitivity research, including Jadzia Jagielowicz, Elaine Aron, Arthur Aron, Bianca Acevedo, and Teresa Tillman, knew they needed hard data, not just anecdotes. So, they didn't just run one tiny study and call it a day. They ran 3 distinct studies to make sure the findings were rock solid. Step 1, they started with 125 U.S. psychology students, mostly young adults. But, they had to make sure it wasn't just a young student thing. So for Step 2, they expanded the net, recruiting 214 diverse adults ranging from 18 to 77 years old through social media. And then, Step 3, they went even bigger, testing 351 adults across an online platform called Amazon Mechanical Turk. And let me tell you, as that sample size grew and diversified, the evidence just became impossible to ignore.
Now, any good detective knows you got to rule out the other suspects, right? The researchers anticipated a major pushback. People might say, hey, aren't these folks just generally anxious or negative, and maybe they just complain more about medicines? To tackle this head-on, they meticulously separated sensory processing sensitivity, that heightened biological responsiveness, from what psychologists call negative affectivity, which is basically just a chronic negative mood or generalized anxiety. They had to prove this was all about biological sensitivity, not just someone having a pessimistic outlook. So to get this data across all 3 studies, the team used highly specific, validated questionnaires. They used the well-established Highly Sensitive Person, or HSP scale, to measure someone's SPS levels. Then they paired that with specific scales to measure medication sensitivity and completely separate scales for that negative affectivity we just talked about. They even mathematically controlled for potential biases like gender, just to make absolutely sure the data they were pulling was as pure and isolated as possible. Moving right along to Section 2, the verdict, revealing the key findings. Okay, so the suspect is isolated, the methodology is sound, and the data is in. And when the team finally crunched the numbers from hundreds of participants across all these different demographics, they found a really consistent positive correlation. Just look at this. In Study 1, we see a moderate correlation of 0.34 with a highly significant p-value. Then Study 2 shows a smaller but still totally robust correlation of 0.21. And in Study 3, the biggest group of all, it bounces right back up to a strong 0.36. The numbers literally do not lie here. Higher sensory processing sensitivity is definitively linked to greater medication sensitivity.
And remember how they had to rule out those other suspects? Well, they nailed it. The data showed that this biological connection was incredibly consistent for both men and women. Plus, and this is the really important part, the link was completely independent of negative affectivity. What that actually means is, even if a highly sensitive person was having the best day ever, totally relaxed, not anxious at all, their biological wiring still made them more sensitive to the medication. It is just a universal biological reality for people with this trait.
Which brings us to Section 3, the future. Personalized medicine for sensitive individuals.
So, mystery solved. We know why some folks react so strongly to medications. But honestly, why does this matter for you right now? Well, it matters because this data is a literal game changer for the future of healthcare. It takes psychological research and turns it into practical, everyday medicine. Based on these findings, there are some massive implications here. First up, adjusting dosages. Highly sensitive people might actually need much lower doses of a medication to get the exact same safe result, without the toxic side effects. Second, screening. Imagine if your doctor used a quick version of that HSP scale in the waiting room to identify if you're sensitive before they even grab their prescription pad. And third, improving adherence. Look, if a pill makes you feel terrible, you're going to stop taking it, right? By minimizing those side effects through tailored dosages, sensitive patients are way more likely to stick to their treatments and actually get better.
I actually want to read you this exact quote straight from the study's conclusion because it absolutely hits the nail on the head. By adjusting treatment plans to account for SPS, clinicians can improve patient outcomes, making medicine truly personalized. This is not just about avoiding a bad reaction. This is about shifting the whole medical paradigm. We're talking about moving away from that outdated one-size-fits-all model and stepping into an era where your specific biological sensitivity dictates exactly how you are cared for.
And that wraps up our explainer for today. But before you go, I want to leave you with a question to chew on. How will knowing your biological sensitivity change your next visit to the doctor's office? Are you going to speak up about how your body normally reacts? Maybe ask to start on a lower dose just in case? Understanding this research literally gives you the power to advocate for yourself and to demand the personalized medical care your unique biology actually deserves. Thanks so much for hanging out with me to unpack this, and keep exploring the science that makes you exactly who you are.